Yeah, my name is Peter Scherer. I am serving currently as the industry co-chair of the technical committee of the IHE Eye Care, and with me presenting today is Donald von Syckle, consultant to the technical and planning committee of the IHE Eye Care team. If we start with a short introduction, then we will first see that IHE is an initiative by healthcare professional and the industry. That's an important understanding here, that users and vendors are teaming up to make computer systems in healthcare work much more for the benefit of the users. It reaches back to '97 that the IHE initiative got started, and the basic pattern is that IHE identifies workflows and checks for standards that could be used to fulfill these workflows, and then define the rules, the guidelines, how these standards should be applied to realize a good experience, use experience for the healthcare professionals. The sponsors originally were HIMSS and RSNA, and slide 3, please. We did then see the American Academy of Ophthalmology in 2005 recognizing the benefits of IHE, and did start an IHE Eye Care team which deals with the specific needs of the ophthalmic healthcare enterprise. The AAO since then made strong suggestions to the clinicians to look into what the IHE Eye Care team comes up and make them focus on using systems that are supporting the integration profiles as they get worked out by the IHE Eye Care team. To make this happen in the best way, there is, besides the fact that these guidelines get developed and published, there are multiple events through the year that vendors can come together and make sure that the implementations that they did at home really work in a real-world environment, so that the users can be sure, if they introduce such systems into their environment, that out of the box the functionality as good as even possible. Besides that, there is a demonstration during the annual AAO event, normally mid to end October to mid-November, and there is a booth that is called the Electronic Office that shows in detail with a couple of participant vendors how these workflows can be used to realize a patient walkthrough. It's always an interesting thing to go there and check out what's new and how the vendors interact. Okay, next slide, please. If we look a little bit at the basics, there are mainly 4 core standards that all these guidelines are based on. For sure, the HS7 version 2.x, that's a standard used forever, especially in clinics and bigger offices, to communicate administrative and non-imaging data, so kind of reports, lab results, everything that you need to manage a place, even a huge place, can be expressed in a version 2.x message. And there are multiple technologies available to broadcast those messages so that the systems are able to interact. On the other end, what you have are more complex data that are even much bigger in size. Those more image-like data are normally handled by the DICOM standards, DICOM like digital imaging and communication in medicine. So that's something to store and communicate big pieces of data. So in ophthalmology, that would be photos from fundus cameras, slit lamps, but then going beyond the traditional image, if you have visual fields or OCTs, then all these data can also be represented and used in the DICOM context. What is relatively new in terms of 5 to 10 years, is HL7 version 3 CDA, like clinical document architecture. The benefits of CDA-based data transfer got recognized, and a couple of developments in specific countries did speed up, did boost the acceptance and the usage of such documents in certain countries that gave this technology an overall boost. And we see it more and more in the field. Then we have something very specific in ophthalmology if it comes to the refractive devices that are widely used. And here we have, coming from Japan, a XML-based standard that the IHE Eye Care team did adapt shortly to also make data available with this technology. Next slide, please. With this slide, I want to introduce a couple of key terms that will help you to understand and get the most benefit out of Don's presentation that starts shortly. So don't worry if the definitions are a little bit abstract. You will get the meat on the bones as soon as Don starts with his presentation. The first key term is integration profile. And that is just a term that got introduced to define the highest level of abstraction if you talk about things that you want to introduce to cover a certain use case, real-world use case. So that's the starting point. You identify, okay, there's a certain workflow, that's a use case, and I want to cover this, so I define an integration profile. In the integration profile, you define actors, meaning systems that are involved, and transactions, that is the communication in between those actors that make the workflow going around. For each actor, mandatory and optional transactions are defined as usual. The mandatory ones are the ones that you essentially need to make the workflow in full available as it is defined. The optional ones are putting some more comfort and additional functionality on top of it. What we have done at the end, and that's something that you will look into as Don is presenting, is a matrix with the functionalities and the communication abilities that a vendor needs to support to make a product available to play in a certain use case according to the rules that the IHE Eye Care team did define. Again, if I say did define, means that's the result of a communication between a user community and a vendor community that then makes all these integration profiles. This slide gives you just an impression how many profiles, actors, and transactions there already exists. So there's a wide range. Well, we are more than 10 years in business with IHE Eye Care. So during this time, we developed a couple of integration profiles and the corresponding actors and transactions.